Mickey Hart here, you're listening to the GAA Hour Football Show.
The GAA Hour with Colin Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
I'm not finished yet, it took me a long time to get here.
Both players have spoken with each other, and they regret what happened. They've had a frank discussion with each other, and they're both of them are keen to now focus on getting back their county jerseys.
That these fellas will get such a shell shock next Saturday evening that we'll put them back in their asses for 10 years.
Welcome to the GAA Hour on a Wednesday. This week Conor and Conán are here in studio with me, and geez lads, I just can't help thinking, just as we start the podcast, what are the Gweedore lads doing right now? Are they gone on it again? Are they gone on it again on the Wednesday, or is it just the 3 days they've done, or how are they? Are they alive? What's going? The Traveller call out video was a classic with Neil McGee and Kevin Cassidy.
It was absolutely terrifying is what it was.
I do not think there are two footballers in the country that would take those two men on.
No, like in Cassidy in the vest, and Neil McGee frothing at the mouth.
You bastards.
He's sort of stitching the camera like, over his head. Like,
yeah.
Jesus.
So anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, just go on to Kevin Cassidy's Twitter account and you'll see all this. So they've absolutely been going mad. The one thing I thought that really kind of stuck with me, right? So you win a county final, I've won a Leinster club. I don't know, like I would have thought we always used to have the crack the day after, but at some point of the day, the video of the match the previous day would come on and you'd watch it and there'd be a bit of crack around it and then you'd have a bit of crack later on. I said to Niall Friel, like, I mean, the music is this is at 12 o'clock on the Monday morning. And I says to Niall, will you watch the video at some stage? Well, we will not. We're down. He says, we will not. We're down in Mickey's. Will you? As if watching this video is the most stupid thing he's ever. What kind of a suggestion is that?
Yeah, well, the music quickly changed to Mickey Jew Hurt yesterday, I saw in that video. That's the soundtrack to the call.
First time I've heard that in years.
Yeah.
All right, no, I didn't know the Mickey Joe Hart one. Anyways, but listen, we'll move on here. But just actually on that game, I definitely have to apologise to Noel Mooney, because I got this completely wrong on Monday about the yellow cards with Kieran Hughes. So yellow cards don't carry on from normal time into extra time. I was under like this in my days. I thought they did, and I double checked it with another GA journalist. Now I should have done more of a double check, so he got it wrong. He very rarely gets it wrong, so I just took his word on it rather than check it myself. So I made a balls of that. So Noel Mooney is getting performance of the weekend from last Monday. There's going to be 2 performances of the weekend. Noel Mooney, because he's an outstanding game, and I was saying the only blot on this was getting the Kieran Hughes thing wrong, and he didn't get it wrong.
Other McNeilis couldn't believe it when you said that to him.
Yeah, but no, what I'm really annoyed about is people listening to the podcast Monday taking away this as if this is gospel, that he got it wrong, telling their friends. And this spreading around it. This poor referee got this wrong when he absolutely didn't.
What we say is not gospel.
I'm the gobshite that got it wrong. So thankfully that doesn't happen all that often. So that's it. Peter Kelly is coming up on the show, lads, and definitely have to ask Peter Kelly about Didier Cordonnier. So you remember Didier Cordonnier? And also we had a good laugh about this a while ago. James Bond, who played with Two Mile House a few years ago. So I'm looking forward to asking Peter. He's going to clear this up once and for all.
I wasn't in on that podcast. I remember listening, and I just have to add that a mate of mine who I used to play schools football with called himself Homer Simpson to the ref, got himself a second yellow and got sent off. So
see, it's because of that pup is why there's good men actually getting sent off. I know, well, this was a joke, and when you're younger you'll give the referee maybe a false name and it's hilarious, but this is obviously referees are on their guard for these little pups.
I want to talk to Bosco Ramsbottom. I want to talk to
we'll get him onto the show. Want to start off here, lads, by talking about concussions, because there's a fella, Conor Shanahan. This is a very promising underage player in Roscommon. So he's played with Roscommon. He plays with Kilbride as his club, and he's had to retire at 20. He's had 6 concussions, lads, in 5 years. So the first one was in rugby, and the next 5 were in GAA. So each one were triggering piercing headaches, forgetfulness, and abnormal sleep patterns. Like, I mean, that's horrific, you know, and like we hear a lot about concussion in rugby, and it was interesting his first one was in rugby, but that's neither here nor there. I didn't think GAA was really a high risk sport for concussions, you know, like, I mean, there's not really those head high tackles as much, but then again there could be lots of concussions in GAA that are completely going undiagnosed because you just kind of play on. In my day I got knocked out once in an under 21 match, and I completely sparked out. When I hit the ground, my head, there was no protection, and somebody ran in, "Are you okay?" and they'll put up a finger or two. I can't remember, did I get them right or wrong, but I was played on. and there was no pressure on me to come off, and I actually put my hand up and asked to come off myself because it felt completely all over the place. I couldn't track where my man was. He kept vanishing on me. But like, I mean, it's not...
That was before the concussion.
Great movement now this fella had, right? So, like, I mean, this is the thing. So he's saying that the GAA needs to educate managers, coaches and selectors more on the issue, because he feels it's not taken seriously enough in the game, highlighting the greater urgency his rugby club showed when he suffered a head knock when playing a match at age 15. Now, obviously, rugby is way higher risk, so they have maybe better procedures in place. But I do take his point in that what GAA manager, unless there's a doctor in the backroom team, really is going to understand that in the run of the mill club game. Do you know what I mean? Like, the GAA does have a concussion management guide, and it says, if in doubt, sit them out policy. And that insists that players should be taken off immediately if she shows any signs of a concussion. Like, how does a regular under 16 manager know what the signs of a concussion even are? Maybe they're being educated.
But the player will always look to, you see, so much of this is dependent on the player as well, because some players will likely try and circumvent it even if they've had a knock but think they're kind of okay to play on. There are tests, there those cognitive tests, but you can pass them. You might be showing the symptoms, but you can pass them, as you said, showing your fingers, what time, where are we, what the score is, what time it is, etc. So, like you mentioned rugby there, like even rugby in the last few years, it's getting better at it all the time, but they've had a lot of problems with kind of implementing concussion protocols. It's really, really tricky.
Yeah, it is.
So even that sport, with years of kind of experience of concussion, has had its difficulties in trying to implement it. So that's it. It's like I personally think the culture in GAA towards concussion, from what I've seen, is pretty good in terms of that. There's, as soon as what you say there, when in doubt, sit it out. As soon as there's any doubt about anyone now, and I would have thought that earlier on when I was playing that wasn't the case. Whereas now, if there's any doubt, and players know that too.
So you've noticed a difference?
I think so, but that's just my own personal experience. I don't know about G.
What about you, Conan? Have you noticed a kind of change in attitude towards bangs to the head?
Yeah, but I think what Conor's saying is right about it's the players sort of thing. Like, it's hard. Like, I got a concussion this year, and you feel like a bit of a fraud, to be honest, because even though you're forgetting stuff and you feel sick and your head's you're spinning, like, but because you're not limping and people can't see and obvious signs of injury, you're down watching training and boys are asking what's wrong with you, and you feel a little bit like, oh no, I'll just do something here, like, when you're back before you probably should be back. And luckily enough for me, I see Ryan McHugh talking about getting the second one. I didn't have any problems the second time, but you probably came back a bit too soon because of that. And there's no pressure coming from anybody, but it comes from yourself, where you don't want to miss a game. And there was a story in rugby a while back. Like, their protocol is they got this assessment. If you get a concussion, they ask you these questions. But apparently, some of the guys were like deliberately getting answers wrong before, like they would do a test.
So they do shit on the test at the start of the year to cover themselves.
It's not as obvious then if they're doing shit when they have concussion, and that's because they want to play as well. So it almost should be taken out of the players' hands.
This is the thing, I don't get it. You're not going to play well. You might want to play, but you're not going to play well if your head's all over the place. So why do you want to play on? Like, I mean, I just don't get that kind of attitude. If your head, you see Brian O'Driscoll, Cian Healy and these fellas with bad concussions, like, they're clearly wobbling. So even if you want to play, you hardly want to play when you're at 50% capacity of being able to play. You know what I mean? But I do take the point, and Ryan McHugh said that. So he had 2 concussions this year. He said, I had one at the start of the league this year and took about 8 weeks off. I had a slight bleed on my brain. Like, geez, that's some serious stuff. He said, it's a strange injury because looking at someone, you don't think there's anything wrong with them. It was tough. At the time, you have slight headaches and you don't know if there's something wrong with yourself. After a week and a half, you start coming around to yourself. But the fear is you pick up another one and you can pick up serious injuries. So that's the thing. And I do take your point about being a fraud. And there's often that culture in a team, and it's probably made worse by fellas who constantly have injuries that are saying they're injured and they're not, and you don't want to be one of them.
Exactly, yeah.
So there's been a lot of injuries down through the years which I would have even hidden. I wouldn't have even said I have that niggle. I'd be like, geez, I can't be up on the table again. You just don't. I never wanted to have that reputation of being a little bit soft with injuries. You want to get out, and then when you have an injury, you're taken seriously, and you're respected for it. Or I'd play through injuries just not to be that lad. I don't understand the mentality of the fellas who have no shame and are always something wrong with them. But the head injury where there's no outward signs of an injury, and you're saying, look, I can't train. You need a strong doctor there, and if there isn't a doctor there, then it's just your, it's just your word, and your teammates are saying, "Will you come on?"
Yeah, that's it.
It's really interesting with Conor Shanahan as well that one of his last concussions, he gave himself 2 weeks, 3 weeks off, I think was how long he'd been giving himself off, and thought he was okay because while he'd been knocked out in one of his last games, he wasn't showing the symptoms afterwards. Then he went back to training and he got these really acute headaches and he just wasn't right at all. This was after thinking he was fine. So it just goes to show you that even an individual themselves might not necessarily be aware of the symptoms until they manifest themselves weeks after, never mind, a day or two after. So it just to mention about Conor Shanahan about how kind of philosophical he was about this and how I'm sure it was an absolutely devastating blow to have to retire at 20, but he's been really good about it and taking a different approach to, like, he could be forgiven for being down in the dumps for ages, but he's coming out with a really positive attitude and trying to influence how the GAA should deal with it in the future, which I think he deserves big credit for.
He does, yeah. We'll try and get him onto the show. It's hard to know what the poor fella can do now, because soccer's obviously out heading the ball, rugby's out, so at those big kind of team sports in Ireland, he's gone. Like, he'll probably have to
athletics
do swimming,
or
athletics, or triathlons or something like that. I'm sure he'll find something that'll keep his fitness up and the enjoyment up. There's another interesting one here in Wicklow, lads, because John Evans is going to be out without at least 4 members of his 2018 panel or team. The O'Byrne Cup obviously starts this weekend. So Kieran Hyland and John McGrath have both retired. They're 2 big losses, and James Stafford and Shawnee Furlong, arguably 4 of their best players of the last 30 years, are all going at the same time. Now Furlong and Stafford, he's given them a little bit more time to see are they going to commit or not. They haven't exactly retired yet. But interestingly, Evans has welcomed the arrival of 2 players from Dublin clubs, Oisin Mangan and Dave Devereux. His brother played with the Dublin seniors. It's Nicky Devereux, isn't it?
Nicky Devereux, yeah.
He lined out for the Dubs in last season's O'Byrne Cup. So both of them play with Dublin in the O'Byrne Cup. Dave teamed up with his training squad. So this is the granny rule. Now, this is always this kind of argument about Dublin, and people think you want to split Dublin in 2 and you want to weaken them and all stuff like this. I think if you split Dublin in 2, in 10 years' time, Dublin North and South will be the 2 best teams in the country, because it's just maths. It's just maths and it's tradition. Dublin have the tradition, have the maths, have the structures. Both, it would be Kerry, Dublin. That's just on the evidence of since the GAA have started, that's what it's going to be. And Mayo might pop in for 5 or 6 years and they'll pop back out, and you might get 1 or 2, and that's it. So it's not always to weaken Dublin, because long-term Dublin will not be weakened. It's to give more Dublin players a chance, because look at these fellas in the O'Byrne Cup squad. These lads will probably both make the Wicklow team. The whole O'Byrne Cup squad. How many Dublin players won't get the chance to play inter-county football? And I think loads of counties around Leinster are, I think Laois, Louth, Wicklow, all these teams should be looking at granny rules, should be looking at any connection they have to these fellas and get them down. What's the big deal? Because Leinster football, the other counties need to catch up. And what's wrong with taking some of these players and getting them onto the squad? I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. And even when you look at the underdogs in the Dublin, it's a load of Dublin club players that were playing.
Your man, the Skerries fella.
Yeah, Stephen Smith, and just ripped in the shreds, and that's the best of the rest of the country against the best club players in Dublin, basically. Yeah. A couple of experienced players thrown in there, but it shows how good they are and how deep it goes as well. And I'd say a lot of them, like Devereux's probably really looking forward to getting a shot at county football. The same with
of course
Mullins last year going to Donegal. That's a big deal. If you're not going to play for Dublin, why not look at it? I don't think anybody would.
And at least there's some form of connection to the county that you're joining as well, whether it's granny or.
Well, there has to be, right? Or else you have to move there.
Yeah,
so
then,
one
it's,
or the
then
other.
it's nearly like a shop window, which wouldn't, that would create all sorts of problems. But I agree with that. When you even mentioned outside of the, I'd say there's players that are outside the Dublin 26 that we've been making. Maybe not Kerry or Mayo or Tyrone, but really high quality teams. The level that they're at is just ridiculous, and that's it. That's part of the argument. I don't think that's kind of put forward enough. I know Colin O'Rourke would regularly put forward when he puts mentions splitting.
Yeah,
Dublin
but
too.
He's called a bitter mead bollocks and all this when he's not. I don't believe he is.
So many players there have been declined the opportunity to play inter-county football that are as good and better than the vast majority of inter-county players out there.
Yeah, because you see even Kilmacud Crokes, and you look through their team, you have your man Mullen and Pearson, and you have McGowan at the back. All these lads are good players. Really good players. They're not even within an ass's roar of the Dublin squad. They've played under 21. Yeah, and then that's it for them, because you have to be the cream of the crop to be getting near that bloody panel.
McGowan is on the squad, isn't he? But
he was on a Byrne Cup squad last. He's on
he?
the actual squad, is he? Maybe he is.
He is on the squad, but like he hasn't got any game time.
No.
You know, maybe he will this year, but you're right. Like he's a long way out at the minute. Like.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. So Antrim have added Anthony Daly to their backroom team. So he's going to be like a advisory in an advisory capacity. So Neil Pedden, who's going to take charge of the team, this is after Terence Sambo McNaughton stepped down. So they have this Neil Pedden fella in, and they have Anthony Daly. So I know Liam Sheedy worked as an advisory capacity to them for 2 years, and then we had Neil McManus on the show, and I'm pretty sure it was Neil McManus telling us, we didn't see Liam all that often, to be honest. He came up once or twice or whatever. So you know, these advisory capacities, you wonder what it's all about. It's just to lend a legend's name to the setup, and maybe it'll inspire the players a little bit if he shows up 4 or 5 times. You wonder how much of a commitment it is, because Daly doesn't like sitting around. He doesn't like sitting idle anyway. So he's taken over Clare, Dublin. He's been with the Limerick Miners, been with Kilmacud Crokes. He's with Antrim now. He does punditry work with Air Sport. He does work with RTE TV and radio. So he's flat out. Like, I mean, hurling is just what he does, and that's it. So, like, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they get on with him on board. I'm not sure you have much to say about this hurling aficionado.
Like, but you talk about tradition, like, you know, Antrim, the north of Antrim, up there on the coast there, Cushendall, and, you know, all these Ballycastle and places like that. Like, it's mad for hurling up there. It really is. If you go up, you will think that it's a sort of its own little county up there. Like, so I'd be excited if I was Anthony anyway coming in there. Like,
well, that's the Glen, right? So that's the big GAA hub in Antrim, and there's huge investment being put into the Glen, in and around the schools and all that, and that's what Daly got involved with in Limerick as well, because there was huge investment and huge resources put into underage in Limerick, and Daly took over the minors, and he helped out maybe that progression. So maybe this is all linked to that, you know what I mean? Get Daly in there as a director of hurling. That's what I'd be doing with Anthony Daly, rather than an advisory capacity to a manager. Get him in there, have him oversee this as the legend that he is, and incredibly lovable all over the country, and have him lead this you know, this strategy in the schools and with the under-16s and the minors. Sure, they'd hang on in his every word.
Yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't it be worth it? Get him in there now, whether he wants to do it or not is another story. But if he had a similar job in Limerick, sure, Antrim's not far anymore. You know what I mean? It's not like with that M1 you're up and down.
Yeah.
No problem. Maybe not in rush hour if you're coming from the south side of Dublin. But so it'd be interesting to see. I'd give him an extra job on that. So the 15 journalists, lads. So 14 players went out to Philadelphia for the All-Stars trip, and it's not really an All-Stars trip like years ago, like we've already mentioned. So they're getting through a few interviews anyways, and I just don't get this, right? So there's only 14 fellas and there's 15 journalists, and we joked about, geez, they'll actually be able to shadow one lad while they're coaching and really have a one-on-one with him. And traditionally, the All-Star trip, I know this from players and journalists who've told me, like, you'll meet each other at the bar, and you might say, here, I might meet you tomorrow, and we'll have a sit down, and that's accommodated, and it's really relaxed, and they get to know each other a lot better, and it's just a lovely environment. And I'm just seeing all the quotes now from David Clifford, from Conor Callahan, from Ryan McHugh, and they're across all the papers, the same quotes, so they can't even get their one-on-one. Away in Philadelphia in a relaxed environment. This is a round fecking table sit down. Isn't that depressing?
How long did they have? 3 days did they, as opposed to the All-Star trip might normally be 2 weeks? I know I'm clutching at straws here.
It wouldn't have never been 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'm not too sure actually, but they have about 4 or 5 days and 4 nights or something like that. They have enough to be arranged. It's the point that it's become so sanitized now that not even on an All-Star trip can you get.
Maybe they're keeping the big ones until Christmas or the New Year.
It doesn't get much bigger than David Clifford. David Clifford, I tried to get David Clifford on the podcast, and he respectfully said, "Well, that's not. I'm not into that kind of thing. I'm not interested in interviews or anything like that." So there was a part of me going, right, geez, that's disappointing. Then there's another part of me going, Keir MacDonald here in the making, where you were just going to be wondering what he thinks about things. But you have him over there, and you could have a lovely sit-down exclusive, but no, instead you have to share it with everybody else that's over there, and someone else might not have. I don't know. I think that's a little bit sad. That's it. But anyway, Clifford, Clifford has been talking about not going so well in the league and Eamon Fitzmaurice sticking with him, which I thought was pretty honest from him. I didn't think he was going too bad.
I thought he went all right in the league.
Yeah, early on in the league, but maybe this is from his own standards. He says, I started the first championship game and then it was a massive lift for me. He said it relieved a small bit of the pressure, the fact that I was in the team. He was talking about Eamon Fitzmaurice being unbelievable. So nice of him to admit that things weren't going well. He's humble enough and not giving the old stock answers. Then he talks about the Gooch. He's talking about who his heroes were or whatever. And the Gooch clearly, like, I mean, if you're number 13 in Kerry and you're not kind of thinking the Gooch was a legend, it would be a bit of a weird one. But interestingly, said a player that he would really have admired and looked up to is Jamie Clarke from, well, we don't have to say from Armagh. He was just very classy. He would have remembered certain things he would have done in the field and then used to go try and do them. He had so much stylishness in his play that I always admired it. Isn't that nice?
Yeah,
that he's
really
and
nice.
you can see I can see exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Really, with Jamie Clarke.
I think I can see it in his game,
A little
especially
bit too,
his one-on-one finishing.
Yeah.
I think is like what Gooch, Jamie Clarke, and Clifford have all in common is that they're so cool under pressure when it's a one-on-one. And this is what Gooch would have said to Donny all those years ago as well. Is that like I don't see David Clifford blasting a goal chance. I wouldn't have seen Jamie Clarke blasting a goal chance. He'd dummy the
Clifford
keeper.
blasts a few, yeah.
The only one, the one I was trying to think back was the Monaghan one, but I thought that was he had to blast that because the narrow was so angle.
Well, if you actually,
was so narrow.
if you actually, Morris, what's the fella's name that does all the clips on Facebook? He's from Kilkenny.
Oh, I know the guy.
Morris
you're on about.
Photography. I don't think his surname is there. But he has a David Clifford one. So if you go back through his minors, there's all sorts of finishes from this fella.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, they're not all subtle finishes.
A few from East Kerry recently.
If he's angry, he'll lash it past that goalie. Like, I mean, he has everything. I was thinking a little subtle comparison to Jamie Clarke and the Gooch was that it's not just their finishing. That either can break to the wing and give a lovely crossfield ball. It's the passing. Yeah. And you see what Clifford can come deep and give an over-the-top ball straight into somebody's hands without breaking stride. And Clarke can do that. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not all high-scoring forwards really have that in their locker.
And you know what sets those boys apart is that they don't make their decision. Do you know, like the sort of average players, they know what they're going to do before they get the ball. They want to turn on their left or they want to shoot or they want to pop it off. But these boys are just constantly scanning every little image on the pitch and they'll take whatever avenue is open in that split second. Like, do you know, remember that Clarke goal he got against Tipperary where he was about to finish it? Yeah. And he had to stop it dead in the ground and like sort of a Paddy McCourt jink.
Slow motion, yeah.
And he is just constantly updating the images in his head and making his decision like in tiny little seconds. Whereas I would decide 10 seconds beforehand what I'm going to try and do.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I'd be the same. I've often, like, I mean, without going too much onto this, like, I mean, when you're in the forwards and you've got the ball's been thrown across to you, before the ball's thrown across to me, I might say, I might dummy solo this.
Yeah.
But that might, when I actually catch that,
you're confusing yourself.
That dummy solo might not even be on.
Did you fall over?
So immediately I'm rattled and I'm like, all right, shit, I might have to go around. But this is the natural instinct of, I honestly think that these fellas might have taught that under 10, under 12. And I talked to Daniel Flynn earlier on this year about this when he was being very honest about missing the chance against Cluxton that time. I think Clifford and Gooch and Jamie Clarke have been through this process so many times at underage level. It's been thrown across to them and there they are one-on-one and they've made those mistakes and they've thought about it and suddenly it just becomes a sixth sense, like any kind of skill. You know, the more you do it, the more you'll do. And suddenly now they just know. They don't have to think. They'll say, let's wait to see what the goalie's doing before, and they just know. They might have 5 different things in their locker that they do in a certain situation. And I suppose that's the difference between those players and the likes of me, basically. So Conor Callahan, he was interviewed as well. So in true King Con style, Jim Gavin style, media training style, Con's given absolutely nothing away. So he was asked similar thing about his year because Con was struggling for a lot of this year. He came a bit better in the semi-final and the final, but throughout the year he was struggling badly. Like I would have thought maybe he sat out the Roscommon game, which he admitted might have helped, but he was struggling badly. But he wouldn't admit that. He says, I wouldn't say difficult really. So he was asked, was he having a difficult year? I wouldn't say difficult year. year, really. It was a hugely enjoyable year, both personally and as part of the team. See, not even saying, you'd love to hear from him saying, geez, I was really under pressure there. I don't know if I was tired, but things weren't working for me. And then I had a chat with Jim, and Jason Sherlock helped me a lot. There's zero of that. Do you know, there's just zero of that. That's just the way it is with them. He says, in 2017, I had a really good year. I took a lot of chances. Some things came off, but they don't always come off. But I really enjoyed the year. I was happy with it overall. That's what you want, to peak at the end of the season. But I still really enjoyed the Leinster campaign. I think the Super 8s were really enjoyable as well. Like, everything is enjoyable and everything was great. So then, it just gets peak kind of, immediately I don't want to be saying I'm anything against Con, because Con is such a great player and he's only a young fella as well, and he's only following the example that's been given to him. So then he's asked about the 5 in a row, and his answer is, our focus is on the league.
That's very good.
Which we always take seriously, and then the championship. I think we should actually do some sensationalist headline: Callahan rubbishes O'Byrne Cup. And just really piss off the media manager, right? Just have it across every newspaper. Dublin rubbish, third most important competition.
He's on bigger things.
So he said it's going to be how many titles we won, or whatever he's saying here. It's just so that's what we're trying to do. Everyone will be trying to stop you, and that's the reality of it. We just keep within ourselves and stay off social media. Everybody knows that we focus on the process, and if you start thinking about these glory titles 5 in a row, you're probably not in the right headspace to be playing matches.
Jesus.
See,
every box is ticked, really.
That interview, I think, is a problem with the roundtables as well, and you said not getting one-on-ones when there's 15 journalists around all asking a question, and he's a young lad as well. They're not great answers, in fairness, but that could just be a random question thrown in before somebody else who's trying to get a different story.
I agree. I don't think those roundtables make the players come across well. They're literally sound bites, because if Con says that I had a hugely enjoyable year, the natural follow-up would be, but it wasn't really going too well for you. But if it's a round table, someone else might send it off in a different direction then. So, I don't want to be, you wouldn't be critical of Con. Those round tables are sick.
Yeah.
I did one for Off the Ball before, the scrums, whatever, with Conor McGregor. I went to the fucking, where was he, in the concert hall or up the convention centre. And Jesus Christ, this was the most aggressive thing I'd ever been at. So I got in a question, and another fellow was in straight away, and I was like, where is he bollocks here? So I went back in at him then. So I got in about 4 questions and Conor's answers, and we tried to actually stitch them all together then and play them onto the show. And it was just cringy. It was terrible. But I went back to the lads and said, I'm never doing that again. That's not an interview. I was just battling to get in a question, and it was stupid.
You're trying to get a conversation with him, and then someone else wants to know what I had for breakfast, or
you're gone then. You're gone. That's it. So so round tables, I don't see what anybody gets out of them. And then of course you go on the Irish Times website and it's the same thing. You go on the Examiner, you go on RT, you go on the Independent, all the websites I'll visit, and they all have an interview with this fella. It's all the same. Now they'll try to take different angles on the same quotes, but it's the same fucking stuff. So
then they're embargoing stuff. You might have been at a round table at 1 o'clock in the day. You have it ready for online. They're like, oh, you can't go with that till 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. You're like, why?
It's just the same anyway. So what's the big deal? Oh yeah, the first few questions are for online. Anyways, the GAA are to undertake a study. This is in the Examiner. Why so many Irish players struggle to return to the top flight Gaelic football after a spell in AFL. So there's 58 signed for AFL clubs. There's obviously an awful lot more than 58 go out and don't get signed. But just 24 players of the 58 have actually played 1 or more Premiership games. So when you get signed and you play like the equivalent of intermediate, and you might never make it back up to senior. So it's understood the welfare of players returning home from Australia is one of the reasons for the research. And I think that's if that welfare is the reason for the research, I would say that's a very good thing, because I remember Colin Begley, when he came home from Australia, he was at an awful loose end. He hadn't planned on being dropped. Like, his career went from a huge upward trajectory, making the Brisbane Lions fastest ever player to make it, to getting injured, to the manager getting changed, to the new manager not fancying him and getting delisted. All this happened real fast. Then went to St Kilda and didn't work out there, and suddenly now this fella, after having all those dreams of being a professional athlete, he's landed home to Stradbally. Like, he was rattled. He ended up joining Parnell's. I was up there, and I would have got to know Beggs a lot better, because he would have been younger than me. But if that Parnell's offer hadn't come in to coach within there, have a job and then go back to college, like he didn't really know what to do with his life. Do you know what I mean? So like, I mean, for that reason, that's something I think maybe the GPA can help out with, to do enough for players in that regard, that absolutely returning players. Now they have obviously got different, help, different features and different kind of stuff that they can help players with careers and stuff anyway. So I suppose that would help them, but they almost have to start their young lives all over again.
Yeah. That's an interesting one as well about Colin Bagley landing back to Stradbally in particular, because like small town Ireland can be quite begrudging when it wants to be, and like, oh, this is the guy who went away and now he's back in a couple of years,
tail between his legs.
That's the thing, like, so and I imagine that's the case for like any amount of them, and it's like it's nearly assumed that they're just, oh well, they're back from Australia, they were playing a professional sport, so they're going to be set up and they're going to reach the county team immediately, but it just doesn't happen.
And they wouldn't have gone to college, you see, because they've been taken out at 18, 19. So you're not having gone to college, so you're not even applied, so you could be landing back. You have to wait until the following January to apply for CEO if that's what you want to do, or else it's just, your life's in a bit of a mess. You're 20, 21, you're 3 years behind everybody else going to college, and I think psychologically it must be a really difficult place to be in.
I would like other sports to take a leaf out of this book though, because those stats actually for GAA players going to the AFL are pretty decent compared to other professional sports. I mean, most people don't make it in professional sport, like, and that there's often not really a...
they go out a lot to soccer, they'll go out like when they're 12 or whatever.
But like Kevin Feely was one of them who went to Charlton at 16 years of age, and I remember talking to a guy from Derry, Michael Kennedy. There was 5 Irish lads that went out, 16-year-olds went into the academy, and he said 4 of them aren't even playing soccer anymore.
Right.
Now one of them is Kevin Feely, but the other 3 just aren't playing. Like, and we do all these stories and we get excited, at 16, like, oh, these players are going over, they're going to make it, but like most of them, like the vast majority of them, don't get anywhere near it. And we don't do a story when they're 18 and they're back home in Stradbally or whatever, and they're just falling out of love with the game, and no confidence, no job, no qualifications.
Well, that's the thing, because there's a long list of players that have come back, right, and done well for themselves, like Paul Early, Ty Kennelly, Martin Clarke have won All-Stars coming home, but they've all done well out there as well, so they're not coming home psychologically scarred necessarily. They're coming back as success stories. So like Colin Begley, Brendan Quigley, Paddy Brophy, Daniel Flynn, Paul Cribben, Kevin Dias, Michael Quinn, Brendan Murphy, Chrissy McCaig, Caelan Mooney, they've all come back and continued playing intercounty and been good. But then you have other examples like Tommy Walsh from Kerry, Kyle Coney, Sean Hurley, Kildare, Conor Meredith from Laois, Niall McKeever, Antrim, Declan Matney, Dublin, who have come home and haven't really been seen at intercounty level. So like, I mean, see, again, I don't know what research is going to do, because like, I mean, for example, these fellas who didn't make it, there's lots of minors that don't make it to senior anyway. So like, I mean, there's no definite career path from minor to be definitely successful. So like, I mean, would these lads have made it at senior level even if they hadn't gone there?
But we still
chances are they wouldn't.
We still definitely have the mentality that if they were out there, that when they come back they're going to be an asset to their county teams immediately. We're getting excited about isn't it Killian McDade from Galway?
Oh yeah,
he's coming back.
Oh, I have him earmarked as the number 7.
That's it. It was the same for us with Cian Hanley last year. I mean, like, I'm not giving up on Cian Hanley yet at all, but like, I'd say that the hype that kind of greeted his return wasn't necessarily lived up to last year. Hopefully he'll come good later on, but that's it. If that's more expectation and pressure to deal with. Well, not only have you the blow of confidence to actually not make it in Australia, then it's like, well, then as soon as you're back, well, when are you going to make the county team?
When are you going to lift us and lead us to the promised land?
Conor McKenna, I thought he was going to be in the Tyrone panel for the All-Ireland final, Kyle because Coney he was back home. Like, he was back home for the winter, just, and I was like, he's definitely going to be in the panel. He's obviously good enough. I've never seen him play.
I think he's back in next year. Oh yeah, he's definitely good enough just because he's got this trial. Kyle Coney's back on the Tyrone squad.
Okay,
that's great, and McKenna is as well.
Yeah, 2 great players.
2 great forwards though for these new rules. Like bigger size. Actually, I don't know if McKenna's big or not. I'm presuming he's big, but Kyle Coney's a big kind of fella. He's skillful, but he'd be a decent size. Mark Bradley is going. He's teaching. I think he's training to be a teacher. He's going to England or something, so he's out for next year. So maybe he saw this offensive mark on the horizon. Like, here, I'm out of here. Although, to be honest, he would be well able to get an offensive mark. Well, sure, now it's within
the
45.
He would
definitely in the new rule.
He'd be buzzing around the place. So that's it. So like, I mean, it's interesting. I think the research, if we get a conclusion of how to treat these lads when they come back and how to look after them, rather than why don't some of them not make it. Some of them won't make it just because that's the natural
that's
like way of things. I have this down: Walsh Park or nowhere, lads, because this is going to come to a head. We've had Newbridge or nowhere. Now we have Walsh Park or nowhere. So new Waterford manager Pádraig Fanning, he is saying that he's not entertaining their home games in the Munster League being shipped out. I think I was reading during the week that it was decided that they absolutely won't be able to leave the province, so it'll have to be within Munster. But he's saying they're going to try and delay the redevelopment at Walsh Park until after next summer, so that they can try and stage their home games against Limerick and Clare. Now I think Waterford learned a big lesson from Kildare that time, because Waterford accepted this way too quickly.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, they've an 8,000 capacity. There's some issues with a western boundary wall. I think that's the issue. But if they can fix that, just because there's 8,000 capacity, they're the same thing as Kildare.
Yeah.
Right? Waterford versus Tipperary could get 20,000. Waterford versus Clare could get maybe 18, 20,000. We don't care.
Yeah.
Waterford players are not training all year to get 20,000 a game. They're training all year to have the advantage of Walsh Park's 8,000 with 7,500 Waterford fans crammed in there. And if that wasn't a lesson from Newbridge or nowhere, like, Pádraig Fanning is making the absolute right stand on this one, and shouldn't really have needed the Kildare thing to have although he wasn't the manager last year.
Yeah, training all year to get to a Munster final, and they do that, they should be at home, and that'll be their best chance of getting in there. Like, you know, this is what they're doing, and it's great actually, because at the time we thought that the sort of Kildare or the Newbridge or nowhere thing would set a bit of a trend, and we are like constantly seeing a bit more of an uprising and people being a bit more emboldened in the GAA and fighting back and standing on the ground. A
little bit, yeah. So it's Clare and Limerick they have at home on May the 12th and June the 2nd. So that's it, yeah. And we have Donegal obviously putting it up to the GAA about the Super 8s game as well. So like we are seeing a little bit more of this. And this is not stuff
it's a revolution.
This is not stuff that should even be up for debate. This is just looking for what's fair. Like that's all the Newbridge or nowhere thing was about. Seamus Hickey is retired, lads. He's only 31. Right, so like, I mean, for some reason you think Seamus Hickey's a bit older than that. He's been around since 2006. He got Young Player of the Year in 2007. He got an All-Star in 2008 or 2014, and he won a Munster in 2013. Obviously won the All-Ireland this year. So there's only 3 players on the All-Ireland final match day 26th: Hickey, Richie McCarthy and Tom Condon, that are 30 or over. So there's not going to be many more Limerick hurlers retiring anytime soon. They're a really, really young squad. But he didn't see any game time, so he was in and out this year. I think he played the first game against Tipperary and didn't really get it in the mix. And then you're reading on and saying, Jesus, they finally made the breakthrough. Would you not stay on? It's not like you're not getting any game time. You saw some lads are staying on panels a lot longer without getting on, and then you see at the bottom, 2018 has been a very busy year for him away from hurling, with his wife Ellen giving birth to 2 twin boys in March. Good luck.
That's
see
it.
you after.
Forget about it.
Ellen has put her foot down, Seamus, and listen, get that GPA statement out. I'm not doing this all on my own. Forget about it.
She's been asking to see his game time.
Show me your stats, right? Show me your stats. I'll make a call.
You're away 4 nights a week for this. Come on.
Yeah, so maybe she listens to the podcast. Mate, what are you talking? What's the point of it? You're doing all this. You have twins at home. You're not even seeing game time, honey. Finally, lads, another one on the funnier end of scale is Dennis Bastick has been shortlisted has been chosen for Strictly Come Dancing, that monstrosity of a show. So
Dancing with the Stars,
is
Ireland?
it Dancing with the Stars?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Dancing with the Stars, yeah.
Good man, Connor.
I'll tell you, I'm a big fan.
But it's Strictly Come Dancing, though, right?
I couldn't tell you if the formats are the same. Celebrities dancing, basically.
With a professional.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Not going to get into the intricacies of the...
Nicky Byrne is Bruce Forsyth. That's the only difference. Right, so Aidan O'Mahony won it. And we all know Aidan O'Mahony can't dance, right? Aidan O'Mahony is a square, right? And he'd have to admit that himself. So if I have any advice for Dennis Bastick, right, start off shit, get over the first week, because Aidan O'Mahony improved as the competition. See, you have to try and get your tactics.
Oisin McConville tactic on MasterChef.
On the MasterChef. So he started off, he did steak, chips and peas or something. And he grew throughout. Like, have you watched enough reality TV? You have now. There's obviously a very dangerous game in the first weekend, because you're starting off shit.
Yeah.
So you could go out the first week.
It's a gamble.
So it's a gamble. Yeah. It's a huge gamble, Dennis. Just go off shit. And we know Dennis can move. We saw him in the All-Ireland final doing the
flip.
The flip.
Oh, yeah.
So that's enough for me to know this lad's got a few moves here now.
Yeah.
It's not how good you are, as you said. It's how much you improve as the show goes on.
That's
so, yeah,
it.
if you can gamble at that.
Start terribly. then maybe in week 3 pull out your flip, right? Dennis, just give me a ring here and we'll talk tactics, because this is very, very serious. Let's just not go here and make up the numbers, Dennis.
Yeah.
I want to go here and win this whole thing out.
If you're really, really shit though, you can last for a while. You won't win it, but if you're like Marty Morrissey or Des Cahill, then you'll get the vote for the crack.
The joke one. Yeah, so you don't want to go down that road. You need progression.
Aidan O'Mahony had his abs on display every single episode last year.
He used,
that won it for him.
He used sex appeal, yeah.
Basti could do that as well. He's got good abs.
Oh yeah, we've seen him doing the pull-ups. Yeah.
We need to get this boy in. Yeah, like he'd be his agents or something.
Well, listen, if you want to win it, just listen. I've watched enough reality TV. I know how these things work.
Obviously not enough Strictly Come Dancing though.
Dancing with the Stars, you mean? Right, okay, we'll be back with Peter Kelly. Alright, so 2 Mile House are in their first ever Leinster Intermediate final. That's after winning their first ever Intermediate Kildare title this year, and their captain Peter Kelly joins us on the line now. It's fair to say this is uncharted waters for the club.
It is, yeah, definitely. I mean, 5 years ago we were still a junior club, so to be in an Intermediate Leinster final is, if you said that to me 5 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. So we're really in bonus territory now. So it's just great to be there, and it's a great occasion for the club and the community. So
where is the improvement come from, Peter? Has it been a gradual thing? Like you said, you're All Ireland junior champions, but that was 5 years ago. Like, is it pretty much that same team, or is there new faces in?
No, there'll be a lot of changes from 5 years ago. I suppose back then you had a young crop of players with Chris Healy and Mark Sherry and Adam Burke, the likes of those guys coming through, and now we have another 2 generations even since then again. So I just think it's testament to the work at underage level in the club over the last 10-15 years, and these teams keep on coming through and through. Like last year, a very good minor team, and again this year again. So next year we'll have another 3 or 4 of those minors come through again. So it really is just a testament to all the hard work that's been put in by all the underage coaches over the last few years.
Yeah, because you don't have a big pick. Like you're a small enough parish, right? So you're surrounded by Newbridge, Naas, and Kilcullen.
Exactly, yeah. So we're a small area, small population, but I think a lot of people in the area stick with football as well, which is fantastic. I mean, if you go any of the underage training nights on a Friday night, you'll have way over 100 kids there. Like in the cool camps during the summer, you'll have 170, 180 kids there. So the local primary school only has far less than 300, so you're getting those sort of percentages. You're doing the right thing,
Yeah, no, exactly. It's fair enough work. I was reading an interview you did with the GAA.ie, and you made the point that there's very little known about your opponents at junior or at intermediate level. So you just go out kind of and focus on yourselves, and I suppose that's unless you can go looking for their county final and you won't get it off your opponents, you'll have to ask their opponents, and they might not give it to you. It's hard enough to get information.
Exactly, yeah. No, it is. It's slightly different. It's completely different. Even maybe senior club level, you'll have a lot more information on the other teams, or you might know a lot more of their players. But and then obviously in the county level, you'll have everything kind of analysed down to a T. But it's nice in one way that both teams are going to go out on Saturday. You'll know a few bits about each other and a few players and that, but there's no great tactical battles, and it's kind of just 2 teams going head to head, and it's really enjoyable. You just kind of get back to basics and just get to play football,
Yeah. So how do you go about getting any information? Would you know maybe even 1 or 2 of the Offaly inter-county lads from playing against them, or is there any kind of connections there, and say, is that how you try to fish for information?
I suppose you would. Yeah, that's it. Obviously, I met Nigel Dullen the other day at the launch as well, and I know him from playing down through the years at Offaly, and you'd know a few of the other guys playing for them with their under-20s and playing with their juniors over the years. But other than that, there is no real way, unless you get your hands on video. But as you said, they're scarce and hard to come upon. So you kind of just have to focus on yourself a lot more, and so it's not a bad thing either,
Yeah, exactly. So when you won the junior, you came up to intermediate, and in your intermediate for a few years, you lost the final in 2016, and then this year you won the intermediate quite comfortably in Kildare. So you're in a really good position to come up senior. Would I be right in saying 2016 might have been maybe a year too soon for you?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean, we probably didn't have. Since then, we have another generation of young lads after coming through as well, and we didn't have the strength and depth back then. But look, we were thereabouts then, and we got to a replay that day, so we weren't far off. And I think we would have been all right if we got senior at that stage. But I think now the team we have now, we're far better equipped, and I really see us. like flourishing in senior as well. I don't know if we'll be quite good enough to win it or get that close, but we'll definitely hold our own, that's for sure.
Thing about Moorfield are the successful club, but it's not like it's a complete domination by them. Like Athy have won it, you know, like I mean Sarsfield have won it. Different teams have been able to win it over the years, so it's not an impossible task, you know, which it might look like in Laois, for example.
Oh, exactly, yeah. Like as you said, and the two newer clubs obviously they've had great success over the last 10-15 years, but there has been other teams who come through every year, and like even to come up against Moorfield or Sarsfield, like it wouldn't be overly fearful, you know. You kind of fancy your chances in a way, but yeah, look, that's I suppose for another day, but we'll focus on the game on Saturday now for the moment. But no, it's fantastic to have that to look forward to next year. It really is great achievement.
So like I mean, so you would have played obviously junior club before 2013. You made your debut and won an All-Star in 2010 in your first year under Kieran McGeeney. So like I mean, did playing with a junior team, it obviously didn't curtail you that year? Like I mean, where would McGeeney have seen you, or you know, would he have gone down to junior matches to have looked at you? Like he obviously would have known about you before it.
I suppose I came through the underage structures in Kildare, so I was probably lucky from that point of view. It was just after finishing with under 21s, and we actually got knocked out in the first round against Westmeath. But and it was just, I suppose he was liaising with the under 21 manager, and I managed to get a call up. It was probably around April time, and I didn't even play. I think I came on as a sub and won the league games that year, and then didn't start the first Leinster Championship match either. We lost badly to Louth that year, so and there was kind of wholesale changes made. So I was just lucky. I got in, and we got on a good run that year, and so the rest is history. Yeah,
exactly. And did being from like I suppose at underage level, you were a junior at senior level, but you would have been you know, coming up. You often think some of the players from the weaker clubs don't always get the breaks in the trial matches and don't even get called into county panels.
I suppose it's hard. You kind of always hear that rhetoric in the GAA, all right, but I've never experienced it myself, and like to my house now we've 3 guys in the senior panel, and I mean regardless of whether we're a junior or senior next year, I think the three of us in there probably would have got there anyway, you know.
Right.
But in fairness to the current setup at the moment with Keane, over the last 3-4 years he's been very good to go to all the club games, and all senior, intermediate and junior, I know well they've been covered, you know, so I don't think there's anyone out there who hasn't got a fair chance, you know, and if they are good enough I think they will get their chance as well. So in fairness to him, he does leaves no stone unturned in that regard. Right,
okay. So like I mean obviously 2010, like you said, you got in after that first round game and you won an All-Star. You were beaten in the All-Ireland semi-final by Down. Then you kind of had a few unlucky years with injuries, like you weren't really able to kick on. It was your knee, you did your cruciate, and then you get another knee operation again after that.
Yeah. I suppose I was unlucky for a few years. Alright, after my first year I did my knee. It was actually with UCD in the O'Byrne Cup the following January I did it, so I missed that entire 2011 season, and then you're kind of trying to get back from the cruciate. Obviously it's a big setback and regain fitness and confidence in your own body as well, but and then a few years later I missed the All-Ireland Club, the junior semi-final against Semivale, and luckily I got on in the All-Ireland final against Fiorti because I suppose we were comfortable at the end of that game, so I got to get run out with the club in Crow Park, which I was delighted to be able to do that. But and then over the years, a few setbacks with hamstrings and things like that. But look at it, it's just kind of keeps you hungry as well and makes you really appreciate what you have when you are fit and able to go. So like last year, I got another, like 2 years ago, I would have been more of a substitute role, but last year then I got back into the first team. It really does just make you appreciate what you have when you're in flying fit form.
Well, that's the thing, and like I mean, was when you were a substitute maybe 2 years ago, like I mean, was that after the injuries and not getting your form back fully, or was that just maybe, I don't know, somebody else in better form, or what do you put going back to the sub?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of all the things you said there, to be honest with you. So when you have a good few serious injuries, it kind of does curtail your fitness levels and your bit of pace and mobility and things like that. But as you said as well, like other guys come into form, and that's the level you're at when you're playing intercounty football. You know, if there's someone in better form than you, it doesn't matter what you've done in the past or who they are. It doesn't really matter. They'll get their chance. And look, I don't hold any grudges over anything like that. And if anyone's playing better than you, deserve to be playing, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. But like I mean, from 2010, you were a proper man marking corner back. Like, you mean, you stuck to your man, that was your job. You're still a man marking corner back, but you've really embraced this new dimension to corner back play where you can kind of have license to go up the field and go forward.
Yeah, well, I think it kind of probably shows the way the game has evolved as well, you know. But like in 2010, 11, 12, you kind of were told to mark your man and take him out of the game. And I didn't want to see the corner forward, and that was it, you know. But now, like the full back line, it's almost expected to come up and maybe get a score or two or get a couple of assists. So I think it's just the way the game's transformed as well. But yeah, look at last year, just kind of took it upon myself as well to kind of just give it everything I had, and so I did get up the pitch a lot more than I had done previously. But yeah, no, look, it's a role I enjoy as well. So you're not just focused on the man you're marking; he has to look after you as well, which is great.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, I've the mentality of a cornerback just coming out and marking a man. I always struggled to wonder where the enjoyment in that was. I've played cornerback myself, but like, I mean, I hated it back there. But now it's almost like a wing back. You have license to do what you want.
Yeah,
really.
no, it is. It's a different role, all right. Yeah, and I really can see where you're coming from with that. Like, so the few years, if you're just doing a man marking job, it can get very tedious. But look, it's a challenge in itself as well, and it's something that has to be done by certain players, and if other team of a danger man has to be done too. But as you said, yeah, it's become a lot more enjoyable now over the last couple of years, where you have more free role to attack as well.
Come here, you play midfield for your club, so that's kind of obviously all action. So you have no problem getting forward, and you obviously enjoy that side of the game.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Look, I love coming back playing for the club. You have far more of a free role as well. You know, you can get up the pitch and go back and defend at the same time. So, no, I really enjoy playing midfield. In fairness, yeah, it's a great role.
What happened against Courtwood? So you were 11 points up at half time, and you were carrying a bit of a knock. Was it your ankle? And so you were taken off. With the Leinster final in mind, which looks absolutely like good management, and then Courtwood scored 2 goals, and then there's a bit of a panic stations for a while.
Yeah, so I was warm back up, ready to come back on, but thankfully then we got a goal soon after that, so the gap widened again. But yeah, look at it. It wasn't a great second half display by us at all, and it's definitely something that we'll take from that game that we need to work on coming into the Leinster final and hopefully beyond. But yeah, look, I think it was just a little bit of complacency in the second half. Being 11 points up at half time, it's a rarity really these days. But I think it was just a little bit of complacency, and guys kind of took the foot off the pedal for a few minutes, 5-10 minutes. But I think when we got the scare, then I think we pushed on again. So thankfully we came out on the right side. Yeah,
exactly. Come here, I was reading during the week Michael Fennelly has gone in with Kildare as performance coach. So you have huge changes within your backroom team. You know, Tom Cribben's in there. You've got the coach from Galway. His name escapes me now. But like, I mean, I'm just wondering, have you met Michael Fennelly? Because we were talking on the podcast on Monday about what a performance coach actually does. I'm just wondering, have you met with him, or do you know exactly what his role is going to be?
To be honest with you, no, I haven't. Because like Keane's kind of left the three of us on the panel. He's kind of left us off with the club, you know, which is fair enough. So I actually haven't been around any of the new selectors or backroom team at all yet. So look, I'm excited to get in there, and when you hear the likes of Michael Fennelly getting involved, like, it's obviously very exciting. He knows what it takes to win, and like anyone coming on board with that sort of a history behind them, like, it's going to be a good thing for us, really, you know.
Yeah, because they've had that blow of Daniel Flynn and Niall Kelly this week, saying that they're not committing. And just from looking at Kildare from the outside, it kind of looks like you make a step forward and then you kind of 2 steps back. I don't know if that's a feeling you'd have. Like, I mean, you did so well in Keane's first year, put it up to Dublin for a lot of the game, then lose to Armagh, then start back badly, then improve, you know, and then these two fellas are like, you couldn't blame the lads for going to have their life, but it's just it's disappointing for me as a Laois man. I can only imagine what it is for you lads.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I suppose we got on a bit of a run last year and it was exciting, and I suppose the buzz in Kildare was back. It hadn't been there for a few years beforehand, since probably McGeeney's era, where there was a demand for tickets and everyone wanted a piece of the team, you know, and it was fantastic. And I can see where you're coming from when you say, like, there's a step back, but look at the guys obviously have their own reasons, whether it be travelling or college or whatever it is. But look, I suppose every panel has to put up with these losses every year and take them. And I think especially last year with under 20s, how good of a run they got on, and I think there's 8 or 9 of them guys in on the panel now, the preliminary panel. So there's no reason why those guys can't push on, and they've unbelievable experience now. Like, to beat the Dubs and beat Kerry, and they don't fear anyone. So that injection of youth kind of hopefully will make up for the loss of 2 boys. Obviously, I'm not going to underestimate the loss of them. They're 2 unbelievable footballers, but look, you just have to take it on the chin and get on with it, and hopefully the younger lads can make the step up.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of things I want you to clear up for me before I let you go. Aidan Casey, your star corner forward, where's number 2? Why is that?
You may ask Niall Brown, our manager, that. I'm sure he has some theory behind it now. I don't know. I was number, I think, 23 all through Kildare. Now I'm number 15, but I don't know. He has a policy of squad numbers, and you wear the same number for every match. So I never asked him what the theory is, but
right. So this is Aidan Casey.
Not stopping Aidan from scoring anyway.
No, he scored 210 the last day, and he's wearing number 2. Like, it's just something wrong about that.
It's bizarre. Right? Yeah. But no, in fairness to Aidan, he's a player for the big game as well, and he stepped up in the final. I think he kicked 10 points as well for us, and 210 the last day. So in fairness, like, he really does step up in the big day. In fairness to him.
Yeah, exactly. The other one is Didier Cordonnier. So we all kind of saw this happen. It was in the first round of the Leinster, probably your trickiest game all year against Shandona. Shandona. So he got a yellow. Said his name, Didier Cordonnier. The referee didn't believe him. Is that what happened? And he got another yellow and sent off?
Yeah, apparently, yeah. Like, I was close by, all right. I think he actually got the first yellow, which shouldn't have been a yellow, because he was kicking a spare ball off the pitch. The referee thought he was kicking the ball he was going to kick out off the pitch, so it was kind of, first yellow was in the wrong as well.
Right.
But and then, yeah, I think the referee just asked him what his name was, and he said it, and the referee told him to give him his proper name or his real name. That's as far as I can gather now. Honestly, I'd have to ask the man himself. But that's from what I gather what happened.
So it was actually
didn't take kindly to it, so I gave him a second yellow.
It was the second yellow was for dissent. I think it was somebody was saying that he was asked to spell his name. The ref, but like we were saying on the podcast here, the referee has the team sheet in his pocket. Like, I mean, he just needs to refer to that.
It only takes 2 seconds to put it out. But I suppose look, sure, everyone makes mistakes in the heat of the moment as well. And I think maybe he thought he was being rubbed up the wrong way or whatever. But yeah, look, at these things happen, and unfortunately for us, we got through that just about. We scraped through by a point, but yeah, could have been a different story if we hadn't won that day. I don't know what would have happened, to be honest.
Exactly, because you finished that game with 13 men, and obviously this sending off was the talk of Twitter that night. And Maureen Catterson tweeted that the exact same thing happened to another 2 Mile House player called James Bond a few years ago. Were you still playing that day, or was
James
this?
Would know him, yeah.
You know him?
No, he'd be a good bit older than me. I think he'd be maybe 37 now at this stage, so I would have never actually played with James. But no, he does exist, and I think that did happen. So yeah, that's a funny one again.
Jesus, you couldn't make it up in 2 in the same club. I can understand the James Bond one, because we were talking earlier about, like, saying to a referee when you're under 12 your name is Homer Simpson or something, just to wind him up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, making it up. Yeah, no, he was. That's his christened name anyway. So I'm sure he's had lots of hassle over the years.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, listen, thanks for clearing that up, Peter, and come here. Best of luck. The game is on Saturday. Best of luck in the match.
Great, cheers. Thanks a million, Con. Appreciate it.
Okay, lads, so Paddy Power predictions, and geez, we're doing well to predict some of these games. So starting off, we have the club, because let's be honest, that's the most important thing this weekend. So in the Leinster Intermediate Football Championship final, Shamrocks from Offaly play 2 Mile House. We just talked to Peter Kelly. Shamrocks are outsiders 7-5, 2 Mile House 8-11. Favourites in this one. So, like, I mean, I'll be giving my nod to 2 Mile House there to beat Courtwood, obviously, in the semi-final, beat them well. And Courtwood are the intermediate team that beat us in the semi-final of the League Championship. So they're a tasty side. They're a good young team. So to hammer them, that's all. I don't need to see any more. I don't need to see
2
any more.
2 Mile House for me.
Cordonier's flying for them as well.
Right, then we have Leinster Junior Championship final. This is Dundalk Young Ireland's. From Louth play St. Bridget's of Offaly. There must be a St. Bridget's club in every single county in the whole country. Would there be?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'd say there absolutely is. Yeah.
I don't actually think there's one in Mayo, but yeah, in most counties,
but it must be the most popular club.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Maybe Oliver Plunkett's or Robert Emmett's or something like that.
Yeah, it's popular, but I can't think.
Shamrocks.
Shamrocks.
Is there Air Oaks? Is there a few Air Oaks as well? Maybe not.
Air Oaks would be a big one too. Yeah, geez, there's a great little quiz now. Right, so talking absolute nonsense here. Dundalk Young Irelands are 10-11, St. Bridget's 11-10. This is anyone's game, lads. I'm going to go with the Offaly champion St. Bridget's. Go on to Bridget's.
No, you're wrong. Young Ireland's got it. They got the home advantage.
You're going with I'd say there's not too many Young Irelands in the country. There is one in Australia, I think, or in Chicago.
Sydney, I think.
In Sydney, that was it. Brian McGuigan played with them when I was there. Then on Sunday, you have the All-Ireland Junior Championship quarter final. You have the Red Hues of Donegal versus the Dunedin.
I do know about this game.
Do you?
Know about this game. It's my annual shout out to Dunedin Connolly's.
Yeah,
in
you did this last year too.
I think I did the year before too.
They let us down last year, didn't they?
Well, they lost to the Father Rocks, is it, from Cookstown and Tyrone? They lost to them last year. So yeah, a good mate of mine. Two fellas. There's a very strong Mayo contingent, including a good mate of mine. And they won it, the All Britain for the third year in a row there recently. And actually, they beat Neasden Gales Neasden Gales had a penalty that would have levelled it with the last kick of the game, and the keeper saved it. So what a way to win it!
Right,
so,
okay.
Yeah, they've been getting closer and closer. I think they were beaten narrowly by Father Rocks last year.
So where are they? Dunedin. Where's
Edinburgh?
It's in Edinburgh,
yeah.
Right? Okay, very good. Okay, so fair play to them. 3 in a row. Then on Sunday,
I'm going for them.
You're going for them. We'll all go for them. Yeah.
No, I'm going for E-Rua, which is supposed to be Red Hues. It's anglicised version of it, but they don't like that. It's E-Rua, South Donegal.
Very good.
Yeah, like the Irish down there.
We know more about this game than we do.
Yeah, we should have done a full. You didn't even give me this information before the show. So then obviously we have the Leinster final, Kilmacud Crokes versus Mullinahachta, and this is in O'Connor Park at 1:30. So it's live coverage of this one. So Kilmacud are 2-9 favourites according to Paddy Power. Mullinahachta are 4-1. And James McGivney, our buddy, who absolutely did nothing to get sent off or get Brian Darby sent off, as we saw in that, or as I saw in that video, he's talking about, obviously, and it's kind of the same narrative about Mullinahachta. We all kind of know now it's a half parish. James says there's only a church, a community centre, a school with 44 students, and a football field. And only for football field, I'd say the majority of our team would have emigrated by now. It's the heartbeat of the club and the only thing keeping the community together. So like he went to Australia for a year and cut it short to come home and play, and they ended up losing the county final, I think, the year that he did that. So like, I mean, it's all, and it just, like, when I read this stuff, I just start kind of daydreaming about being from a small area like that, and I think of Gweedore, and I think about the GAA just being like literally life in these small places, and they, like in Gweedore, the Irish language and just the culture of it, and just thinking how much more maybe it means to them. I don't know, like it shouldn't really mean more, but I suppose if it's all that's in the town, like it's your life. Like, I mean, imagine maybe that's why Gweedore are going book mad all this week and they're still going. I don't know.
Yeah, and like when it is a small, I think when it is a small town, the whole place stops when you've got a game. Everyone's talking about it. It's more likely, well, you will run into somebody who's involved in the club because they probably all are involved.
Yeah.
It is. It's beautiful.
Because the thing about this, I've never experienced this because Portlaoise is such a big town. There's one club in the town. So after big matches back when I was playing, we'd go back up to the clubhouse after Moore Park, and there'd be all the GAA community in there. Now the clubhouse would be full, but you could go down to majority of the pubs down to town and people are going by their normal Sunday and they don't give a shit. You might actually be annoying them coming in because you might be a bit loud and boisterous. So you never, like, I mean, I'm sure the Gweedore lads could go into any pub in Gweedore and cheer going,
for months, I'd say.
So Jesus, just a little bit of jealousy. I don't want to be a bogger, but
but you did win something, like how many county titles at the same time? So
I have 6 county titles, but like, I mean, and that's fair enough. And they do mean, I don't want to say they don't mean a lot because they obviously mean the same to your. I suppose it's to the community.
But it's always sobering to find out how little people outside of your little world care or give a shit about what you're doing. I remember we were going to an intermediate final one time, and this was the biggest thing that ever happened in our lives, like, and then you're driving up in the bus and there's these little scumbags just throwing stones at the bus, and they're going on about their day, like, and for you this is all that mattered for the last year, and you realise actually this isn't that important in the grand scheme of things.
Well, that's it, and that kind of gets rammed home to you when you're on the beer the next day on a Monday, for example, and you walk outside a pub and there's people just walking home from work. But you, for some reason in your head, the whole world has stopped this day, like, everything's been shut down, but it absolutely hasn't. It just has in your stupid little group in there. Right, so pre-season competitions. So on Saturday, The O'Byrne Cup, Louth versus Wexford. Now, there's no prices from Paddy Power on this, because who the hell, with a combination of the new rules and a combination of not having a clue what teams are being put out, there's just no way. Maybe they'll have them up later on in the year. But interestingly, Laois play Meath in O'Moore Park, so immediately that jumped out at me. So I'm going to go to that game. Conan and Connor, neither of you are in here on Monday, so I'm going to have to get a special guest to sit in with me on Monday, and I'll give you a full lowdown on Monday about the new rules and how they worked in this Laois versus Meath game, and I'll try and give an honest assessment. I'll absolutely lynch the defensive mark straight away. Right, so they're on. Longford play Wicklow, then Sunday in the O'Byrne Cup, Carlow play Westmeath, that's in Dr. Cullen Park. Anyone in around that area, if the provincial club final wasn't on the same time, I would be interested in going over to see how a pretty defensive team like Carlow are going to adapt in their very first competitive game in this. And in the World Cup, Offaly play Laois in Borough at 2 p.m. That's Eddie Brennan's very first game as Laois manager. So that's everything that's going on the weekend. And like I said, I'll be back on Monday with another, and we'll run through the whole thing. So we'll talk to you then. Good luck.